Okay, now that we are done with our sprinting and stamina, we can focus on crouching to complete our character movement. The first thing that we need to do is obviously create an input for crouching. So let's go to main, inputs, actions, right click, input action underscore crouch. Now let's go back to our EMC player. Let's add a new mapping. It will be our crouch, and I think that crouching should be done with a control. Obviously you can use whatever key you want, but I think that control is the most suitable for crouching. So let's just close this EMC player, we no longer need it. And now let's go down there underneath our sprinting and stamina, and here we will create two custom events. Let's just create custom event, and first one will be called crouch enter, and the second custom event will be called crouch exit. Alright, so now we can move up here where we have our input actions. Here we have our sprint input. So what we can do here is to just get input action crouch, expand this, and if we start, we want to call our custom event called crouch enter, and when it's complete, we want to crouch exit. And that's pretty much it. We don't need to do any fancy logic here. We just want to crouch enter and crouch exit. So let's just comment this, crouch. All right, compile, save, and let's go back to our custom events right here. First of all, we have to create a new variable for our crouching. So let's create a variable called is crouching question mark. And we can also set a category for these variables called crouching, just like that. So everything looks disorganized. So obviously when we enter our crouching, we want to set the crouching variable to true. Then we also want to sprint exit. If we are sprinting and we start to crouch, we want to exit sprinting, and we can here change our character max walk speed. So search for max walk speed, set max walk speed, and it will be a 100. So for walking it is 150, for sprinting it is 300, and for crouching I want it to be pretty slow, so it will be a 100. And for the crouch exit, it is pretty much the similar setup. We can set is crouching to false, but before doing that, we can also check one thing. So let's add a branch here. And here we need to make sure if we are crouching, and we also need to make sure that we can uncrouch. So for example, when we will crouch, our character will get a little bit smaller, so we can fit in smaller places. And then if we are smaller and we want to uncrouch, but for example, there's something above our head and we cannot uncrouch, then we obviously can't do that. So we will create a new variable called can uncrouch question mark. And let's just plug this into this end boolean and plug this into our branch. Okay, so we're doing the same thing as we're doing here. Now we need to decide if we want to go to walking or running. And this is pretty simple to do. We can use a branch for this. And now we can just get our input action sprint. And if our input action sprint is true, then we know that we're sprinting. So we can just sprint enter. But if this sprint key is not holded, we can just do the same thing as we did here. So set max walk speed back to 150. Let's compile, save. So now what we're doing is we are just setting a is crouching variable to true. We're exiting sprint and we're setting a max walk speed. And the same thing happens here. But that's not all, because as I said before, I want our character to get smaller when we crouch. More like our character collision to get smaller so we can fit in some smaller places. And let's see how we can do that.